Hey, this is Corey from Wolfpack Woodcraft, and today we're going to be looking at where there is no doctors. We're also going to be comparing that with the Survival Medicine Handbook, because I know a lot of people are going to ask me which one I prefer, so at the end we'll go over that. But this book is very interesting when it comes to medical advice, when it comes to medical treatments, when it comes to medications. There's a ton of information inside this book, and there are 3 color-coded parts, I guess. They're not really chapters, but they're parts. And so the brown is where you get started. The brown section is where you're going to learn what the book is about. You're going to learn kind of the mentality that you need to have. You're going to learn a lot about the basic principles of what to expect in the future chapters, right? You're going to learn where babies come from. You're going to learn how to deliver babies. You're going to learn how to deal with blunt force trauma. You're going to learn how to deal with a lot of gruesome and gory things. And so it just kind of prepares you for that. The green section is about medications. So if you're treating somebody and they're on a specific medication, you can look it up and see what it pairs with, what it doesn't pair with, what a proper dosage should be, and it gives you information on that. And then the yellow section is the index, where you can look up words that you're not familiar with. You can look up symptoms, and it'll take you to the page where it'll describe those words, it'll describe those symptoms, and it'll kind of give you quick access to things that you need right up front. And then of course the white is all of the information. That's all the meat and potatoes of the book, and how to treat different things, how to identify different things, how to diagnose things. Now, it's a very in-depth book. I really enjoy it a lot. And so again, it's going to go over a lot of different things, just like the Survival Medicine Handbook. And this is one that's highly recommended by a lot of preppers. People that are of a prepared or a self-reliant mindset typically enjoy this book. And the main difference between the two, okay, is the where there is no doctors is all about you can take care of somebody, you can save somebody, you can keep them alive until the ambulance shows up or until you can get them to a hospital. Right? It's all about saving people's lives and giving them the injections they need, the treatments they need, the medications they need. It's all about saving people and making them as comfortable as possible. Where the Survival Medicine Handbook is more about there is no doctor, there is no ambulance, nobody's coming to help you. Okay, you're all alone. And so in this book, it talks about doing whatever it takes to keep people alive and well. In this book, it talks about how, like, sometimes you just need to cut your losses and not waste the resources you have on that person, because you need to save those resources for somebody you actually can help, right? A good example of that is in this book. It talks about CPR, the importance of CPR. We all know how important CPR is and how resuscitation can really help save lives. And this talks about it, describes how to do it. It's very good. This book says don't waste your time with CPR, because what CPR does is it keeps somebody alive. It's you are personally stabilizing them until the ambulance shows up. And then once the ambulance shows up, they're going to hook them up to oxygen. They're going to hook them up to all these fancy machineries, and the machines are going to do the job for you. And then once they get to the hospital can then further assess them and get them to a point where they can stabilize themselves and they can depend on themselves and not the machinery anymore. And then they can go about their normal life. If there is no oxygen, if there is no machines, if there is no hospital, you're just keeping them alive long enough to the second you stop CPR, it's done and over with, right? And so you might not want to waste your time with that. The other thing that this book does is it talks about maybe going to so this book talks about prescription medication, right? You go to the pharmacy, pick up your prescription, your doctor writes you a prescription. This talks about all of that. This doesn't talk about much of that at all, because average people like you and I don't have access to that stuff, right? It does, I shouldn't say it, but it does talk about maybe going to a pet store and making sure you can take care of your fish, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, you'll have to read the book. But it does talk about some of those types of things, but it doesn't talk about a lot of the pharmacy medications that are prescribed by a doctor, because again, you and I don't have access to that kind of stuff. And so another really good example is when it talks about birth control. Okay, where there is no doctors, it's going to talk about condoms, it's going to talk about injections, it's going to talk about implants, different kinds of the pill. It's going to go over like a lot of different kinds of birth control. This one, right, we don't have access to implants, we don't have access to the pill, we don't have access to a lot of that stuff. So this one talks mostly about condoms and then like old traditional ways of family planning. And so a lot of the information that you get in here of all the modern medicine isn't in this book. This is more of a self-reliance after a collapse preparedness book, where this is more of a the doctor is still around. We just have to stabilize someone to get them there. The ambulance still exists. We got to just get them to the hospital. We need to take care of them until the weather clears up so that the ambulance can get to us or we can get to the hospital. And so that is truly the main difference. Okay? If you own the Survival Medicine Handbook, okay, I don't think you need Where There Is No Doctor, because a lot of the information, most of the information in here is in here. The only thing that's not in here is the modern medicine. And if you have Where There Is No Doctors, I don't think you need the Survival Medicine Handbook. What I do recommend is if you have Where There Is No Doctor and you want that modern medicine book, I do suggest picking up the Ultimate Survival Medicine Guide. Okay, so what this is this is a smaller version of this. Okay, this book is inside this book. It's just this book has so much more. The example is I was talking about CPR. This book says don't waste your time on it, leaves it at that. Okay, this book says don't waste your time on it. But if you do have access to the machinery and the modern medicines, if the collapse isn't fully fallen yet, and you still have some access to these things, it still teaches you how to do CPR. It still goes through the step-by-step. It still tells you the tips and tricks and the importance. And so this is going to give you way more information than this one will. But this one will complement this one really well. And so for me, I think that this is a perfect combo right here. You need the Where There Is No Doctor and the Ultimate Survival Medicine Guide. I will leave links to both of these in the description box down below. And I will also leave a link to the Survival Medicine Handbook. And this is going to be the prepper book of choice for me. This is going to be the one that I recommend the most because, again, it's all about self-reliance. It's all about self-care. A lot of the things inside this book I don't have access to. Okay, so even if I was in a situation where I knew what to do, I knew how to handle it, I knew what to prescribe, I knew everything there was to know, I can't get the medication, right? And so it really doesn't pay for me to have that information because there's nothing I can do with it, right? Where this book is more self-reliant. And so if you are of the prepared mind, I highly suggest the Survival Medicine Handbook. If you are more of a modern medicine, you want to know what you're being prescribed, why you're being prescribed it, what your treatment is, why you're being treated that way, I suggest Where There Is No Doctors. And this combo right here is a good combo for somebody like that. You get the best of both worlds with this combination. And in that comment section down below, I want to know what you think. Are you more of a modern medicine kind of person, or are you more of a prepared mindset and you want to know what to do after a collapse where there is no doctors? Seriously. Let me know in that comment section down below, and I can't wait to see you on my next video.